Afternoon, everyone. Kevin O'Leary and Andrew Scheer held an event at Ryerson University yesterday, and the National Post is reporting on it. Quote, Andrew Scheer taps Kevin O'Leary's star power in hopes of defeating Trudeau Liberals in 2019. Quote, I'm so motivated to get out there and make this change happen because I smell it. I smell the winds of change, O'Leary said. Conservative leader Andrew Scheer's campaign for Prime Minister next year will get some star power from businessman Kevin O'Leary, the two said in Toronto Monday. O'Leary ran against Scheer for the Conservative Party leadership before dropping out and backing Scheer's main rival, Maxime Bernier. But now O'Leary and Scheer have joined forces in hopes of defeating the Liberals in 2019. So I find that interesting. These guys were both competitors for the Conservative leadership. Mr. O'Leary, dropped out and backed Maxime Bernier, who has the People's Party. And instead of choosing to continue to back Max, he is backing Mr. Scheer. So Manny Ottawa and I talked about that on Twitter this morning, and he thinks that that's a sign that Max supporters should stop supporting Max. I continue to push back, and I think Manny is missing the point on this, but that's not my point here. The speech in the event at Ryerson was interesting. The link is in the description if you want to watch the whole thing. I'm going to highlight a few specific talking points, but I'll tell you kind of what the speech covers. And it's worth the watch. It's worth the time, really. You can watch in 1.5 or 2 speed if you've got a speed changer plugin installed. But again, I'm getting off track. I apologize. So O'Leary introduces Scheer. And at 4 minutes in, Scheer starts talking. He says it took Trudeau 9 months to respond to Trump's policy changes. And he asked, what are you doing to make sure the people are choosing Canada for new investments or new projects or whatever? And Trudeau says, I'll get back to you on that. We'll look into it. We'll study it. And it took 9 months to even respond. And the response wasn't good enough. It was more corporate welfare, et cetera. And we saw what happened with that. We've got GM leaving Canada in 2019. After 100 years of building cars in Oshawa. So that's pretty crazy. At 6 minutes, 20 seconds, Mr. O'Leary weighs in on Mr. Morneau and says that Mr. Morneau worked as an actuarial accountant in the insurance industry, and he doesn't understand the complexity of Canada's economy or how to run it. And he compares the 9-month lag to what Trump did to incentivize businesses to go down south. And he really explains kind of the tax incentive and the fact that Canadian businesses didn't any businesses, multinational businesses didn't take it up right away is incredible. But the fact that it took 9 months for Canada to do anything about it is terrible. Government should be more responsive than that. If you did that in your job, you would lose your job very quickly. If you got an emergency, something happening in January, and it took you to September to get back to them, they'd moved on, right? So at 7:50, Mr. Scheer talks about his positive conservative vision for Canada, and he wants the free market to work. And basically, he's contrasting the extreme left that we're seeing from Trudeau to a free market system that is very centrist, and center right, but centrist, right? The free market, in my world, the free market was championed by the small C liberals of Paul Martin and Jean Chrétien. They had balanced budgets and tax and spend. They were tax and spend liberals, but they had balanced budget. And so that is the comparison that I'm trying to make with free market, with comparison to center left or right. Scheer is very much staking out the center right, a little bit right, center right. So, and he's even been quoted as saying, we've got a strong centrist party here that is open for lots of ideas, but not Max's ideas. And I think that's so strange. Why? Why court the same voters that Justin Trudeau's courting? He's lost a ton of voters because he is incompetent, and it shows. And so is his finance minister. But again, he also asks at the end of his speech at 9 minutes, he says, what are you concerned about, Ryerson kids? What things are you worried about? And then he talks about free speech a little bit, and he supports it on college campuses. The free speech thing was, there were a lot of questions about that. So the first 2 questions, 10 minutes and 52 seconds and 13 minutes and 30 seconds, is all about free speech. At 15:58, and that's this guy here, the question is about corporate welfare, and I'll let him frame his question, and then O'Leary responds, but I'll jump ahead to Scheer. O'Leary wants to brand this, and he wants the takeaway to be very, very clear. He wants the takeaway to be, we're firing Trudeau and we're hiring Scheer. he says it like 6 or 7 times, so I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. But anyway, let's hear this. And sorry if the vocals aren't at the correct level. Everything's turned up as loud as it can, and I just think it's going to be low, but I'll do my best here. So here we go.
It was I wanted to see where you fell in line in terms of the diverging schools of thoughts in terms of subsidizing businesses and bailing out businesses like they did in 2009. But I don't think that's a fair question under this blue flag today. So I just want to know, maybe as a group, where do we fall in line with supporting businesses like GM, and at what point do we bail out companies, and when do we give corporate welfare?
Let me speak to that.
Okay, and here's Scheer's response. So this is corporate welfare. When do we bail people out? When do we allow the market to decide, et cetera, et cetera? So this is Scheer's response.
So I'll just quickly add, many of you have probably heard the Reagan quote about, the government's attitudes towards anything is that if it moves, you tax it. If it keeps moving, you regulate it. And when it stops moving, you subsidize it. And I always get frustrated when we come in on the tail end of something and we say, well, is now the time that we subsidize it? And I say, can we go back 2 steps? And can we look about the regulations that are killing it and the taxes that are suffocating it? Because that's the better option. It's far better, as Kevin said, it's far better for the investors, the free markets to do what they have done best. And that is to make decisions as to where plants should be built or what type of cars people want to drive. And we need to make sure that those choices are being made here in Canada. I don't believe that corporate welfare or bailing out companies is ever the preferred solution. When you have a systemic shock to an entire sector, as we did in 2009, 2008, that other countries were going down that road, you can make the case for the economics of that. But to think that the government can make these types of choices better than the markets, it's insane. A great example of this is where we've come with smartphones. I left mine in the boardroom. You've got yours here, Kevin. There was no minister of innovation 10 years ago who decided that flip phones weren't the best product, and let's come up with something that you can watch TV on and record videos and stuff. That happened because companies that were in the cell phone business started to add other aspects to the device. And now we have more computing power in the palm of our hands than they had when they put a man on the moon. And that doesn't come because there's a bunch of people in Ottawa working on a white paper for innovation or for advancements in technology. It comes because you have the climate where that can happen. And what we need to do in this country is not to pick an individual company or an individual sector, but to across the board give every entrepreneur, every business the best possible chance to succeed so that all of you have somewhere to go when you graduate.
Okay, and so I like that. He talks about the 2009 bailout and says that was kind of a perfect storm. And I've talked to other people about this as well. Harper was talking about the fact that the US was going to bail out their auto sector, and if Canada didn't act in the same manner, then all of those jobs would just go to the US, and we would have been facing GM and probably other auto manufacturers being enticed to go to the States because of the bailout in 2009. So he was saying that notwithstanding, corporate bailouts aren't what I want. And he used the example of cell phone market evolution as a kind of a petri dish. And you have to understand, if you are not a little bit older, progress in the 80s and 90s did not happen the way progress happens now, right? You've got a cell phone that the battery kind of died in 2005, and by 2010, you had to carry your charger with you, but for the most part, it stayed, it would die halfway through the day in 2010, let's be honest. And by 2015, you didn't think about that so much anymore. And 2018, I almost never think about my battery. But the point is, there was nobody driving that. There was no governmental anything, direction, policy, nothing governing the cell phone evolution. Nobody's saying, we're going to go here by 2020. No, it was all consumer driven. That's the free market. But prior to something like cell phones or computers, where you've got people who can rapidly test and fail prototypes with a large group comparatively, right? If you were trying to do that in the 80s, you couldn't even get 20 or 30 people to test, never mind hundreds of people to test a piece of software. It's the rate at which things change now is much, much, much faster than the rate at which things changed then. And so allowing a climate where we can test and we can try and we can fail fast, because when you try something, you inevitably fail until you succeed, right? And the first time you fail, you're like, well, I'm not going to try that again. And and then you fail a little bit better and it gets a little closer to the goal, and you fail and you fail and you fail. That's the free market, right? And when you have a government saying, well, you can't fail like that. If you fail like that, the whole project's done. It's problematic. So the rate of change is faster. The rate of innovation is faster. And the only thing stifling us right now are the regulations and the taxes put on us by our government, which is incredible. So Scheer speaks to a lot of that in there, and I like that answer. And I want to give him his due. There's a lot I like about Mr. Scheer, but there is a lot that makes me question what's going on. And next question is one of them. So hold on, let me get the time index right, and let's go. So this question meanders a little bit. He talks about the energy sector. He talks about wanting to have energy independence from Saudi Arabia and other places that we buy oil from, even though our oil is selling for it's the cheapest oil in the world right now. Is it $13 a barrel or something like that? And the world price is 50, which is an insane. We are losing $80 million a day, I think is the focus. So he's concerned about energy. And then he talks about immigration. He says, I think we're giving our country away. Why are we bringing all these people in and punishing people who want to have babies? It's too expensive to have babies. Make the government, or help the government, if you become the government, incentivize Canadians having babies in Canada and repopulating that way instead of immigration all the time. That's the question. That's not me. That's the question. Here we go.
Hi, my name is David Sim. I'm from Pickering. My connection is I have two beautiful daughters that graduated from Ryerson, so that's partly why I'm here. I feel at 68 years old that we're giving too much of our country away to others so freely. We should be burning our own oil, not Saudi oil, on the east side of Canada. I'd like to see more opportunities for our own graduates rather than bringing so many people in from other countries that say because we can't find people here or whatever. And maybe the students need to smarten up a little bit too on their major selections. I also would like to see more growth within Canada. We need more population. My wife and I have 2 children. We'd love to have had more, but we just couldn't afford it. So I would ask, when you're Prime Minister, sir, that you keep in mind that help young people to grow families, to have children, to populate our own country rather than populate it from elsewhere. Thank you.
Well, let me address the energy question first, because you started off talking about why we can't get our own oil to market, why we have to import oil. You hit the nail on the head. You know, for most motorists, I think it's east of the Manitoba-Ontario border, you're filling up your gas, your tank, with mostly foreign oil. We import oil from countries like the U.S., one of our major competitors, Venezuela, Algeria, and Saudi Arabia. We've got Saudi oil coming into Eastern refineries because we have a government that canceled a pipeline that would have taken Western Canadian energy to Eastern Canadian markets. That's unbelievable. And whenever people talk about the Saudi regime and human rights abuses and how Canada should react, I said, first and foremost, we should stop sending them billions of dollars a year to buy their oil. We should get Canadian energy into Canadian markets and get us off of foreign oil. I see radical protesters chaining themselves to trees and laying down in front of bulldozers to stop Canadian exports of energy. But I don't see them lining up and down the St. Lawrence blocking tanker after tanker of Saudi oil coming into Eastern Canadian markets. So we need a government that has a vision for getting Canada self-sufficient on energy. You talked about affordability and families. I've got 5 kids. I certainly appreciate that not everyone can do that. And there are many people. I talk to many people my age. You know, I'm 39, and many of the people I graduated from high school and university with, you know, they've said the same thing you did. You know, it's really tough to take a year off of work, to all the expenses that come with raising a child, and it's not easy. And we have a government right now that should be making it more affordable for people, so that if they want, they could. There are many people that choose not to for other reasons, but there are many people that would like to, and that's where the government can say, hey, you run your life, you live your life, you decide what you'd like to do, but we're going to make it easier to make that choice. And
I want to add something to this.
Okay, and so I want to comment. It was a good response on the energy. I think. He talks about how Liberal governments killed Energy East, et cetera, et cetera. So I liked his energy response. And again, there's no questioning the Conservatives' track record on energy and pipelines. But I don't feel like he really answered the question there about immigration. So I'm going to find the time index, and he comes back and answers it again. So O'Leary takes a few minutes of talking here, and Scheer comes back and says, hold on, I want to flesh out this answer a little bit more. So I appreciate that from him, because not that it takes balls, but sometimes when you've said something, especially in a topic that's fraught like that and politicized like that, better to keep your mouth shut and move on to the next one. So I'm glad that he comes back with it. Again, I'm not 100% on board with his answer. I still don't think he finishes. He satisfactorily answers the spirit of this person's question, but he does come back to it. So I appreciate that from Mr. Scheer. I'm going to be right back and find the time index. Hold on. Okay, so here he is on the second part of this answer. And again, the link is in the description. Please do have a watch. The whole thing is worthwhile. And Kevin O'Leary, he's trying to brand this thing. He keeps saying, we're going to fire Trudeau and hire this guy here, Andrew Scheer, right? So anyway, here's Andrew Scheer. Second part of the answer.
If I could just add it, because I don't think it's an either or issue when you talk about family size here in Canada and immigration, because I do believe that the two can go hand in hand. We have had a long tradition in Canada of welcoming people from all over the world, and they have helped contribute and grow our society, and it is a huge part of our Canadian story. But when those people come here, they need a more affordable life too. So I believe that it's good for so many reasons. We don't have to pit one off against the other. We can continue to be a country that has that proud tradition of welcoming people from all over the world. Where we need to make adjustments, though, is to make sure that our immigration system has integrity behind it, and that we make sure that we are welcoming people to Canada the right way, promoting lawful immigration. And we have a situation right now where people want to jump the line and get ahead of others, and they're crossing into Canada illegally. And that is undermining the confidence that Canadians have in our immigration system as a whole. And I get this from groups of new Canadians, people who say they waited 10 years to come to Canada, and now they see somebody in Roxham Road in Quebec jumping the line, getting ahead of that, getting their applications heard immediately. Recent arrivals in Canada don't like it. The premiers of the provinces that have to deal with the consequences of having 30,000 illegal immigrants, illegal crossings into Canada, those are big consequences. And so that shakes people's confidence in the system. So a Conservative Party has always had a long history of having immigration done the right way, where we go out, we bring the best and the brightest from around the world who want to come here to work hard, to build families, to build societies. And we can do that and make sure that we're making life more affordable for everybody.
Great, thank you.
So you see what I mean? The spirit of and I don't want to put words into that gentleman's mouth. I think he worded his question exactly the way he intended. So I don't want to say he meant this. But when I heard the question, I was hoping Mr. Scheer was going to speak more about the invasion of London and Paris, the terrible results from that multiculturalism experiment or that open borders experiment, and maybe even get into the Global Compact on migration there, because the CPC just came out saying that we would not sign it, we don't want it, and you can use that. This question was right there, and instead Scheer decided to say no, there's room for everybody. We can all get along, and Canada has a long history of getting along. Well, yeah, maybe that's true, but please show me one other example of a multicultural society that has been successful through history. It's dicey. How come all of the well, I'm not going to get into the immigration questions that I have, because, he talks about how the illegal border crossers have shaken Canadians' confidence in immigration, and I would agree with him there. I don't have any confidence in our, quote, immigration system, because our borders are completely open and Justin Trudeau's not doing anything about it, and while calling Canadians racist. So that's terrible, and I wish that Mr. Scheer would hit him harder on that. Again, I appreciate that Mr. Scheer thought that question through, but it seems like he thought that question through like, ooh, my answer wasn't inclusive enough, so I need to add more inclusivity words to my answer. Okay, so that's that on that one. I'm going to jump ahead. Hold on. Okay, here we are. So this is a question on the relationship between Canada and the U.S. I'm glad that Mr. Scheer answers this question. I hate the way he answers this question. This just makes me angry, and I'm going to show you why right after he answers it, because he lies about Trump. Unless somebody can find me somewhere that Trump is talking poorly about free trade, where does he get this? I don't understand where he can say Trump is anti-free trade. Trump has signed free trade agreements with a whole bunch of different countries. I believe that we would have a free trade agreement, and probably still the GM plant, had we signed a free trade agreement that included our dairy aspect. Trump was very, very clear. But anyway, that's my opinion. Here's the question and answer from Mr. Scheer. Well, the question is not from Mr. Scheer, but you know what I mean.
My name is Eric, and I'm from the Campus Conservatives Club at the Ivy School of Business, Western Ontario. And thank you both and Alex for being here today. Mr. O'Leary, it's good to see you. And Monsieur Scheer, je suis ravi de vous avoir. My question is on the U.S.-Canada relations. And unemployment in the States at an all-time low. Their consumer confidence is also increasing. So while Canada's economy has been relatively more or less stagnant. So to echo, before we could have a chance to fire Trudeau and the Liberals next year, could you gentlemen offer some insights on how a conservative government could manage that relationship with the U.S. differently, and how could that benefit Canadians more? And of course, Freeland has failed miserably, and we have to fix that now.
Yeah, look, the relationship with the United States, no matter who is president, is so important to Canada. We have had a history in this country of being able to work with whoever is president of the United States, whether it's Obama or W, Clinton. And no matter who's prime minister here, we've got a liberal or conservative prime minister, we all recognize that when it comes to managing this relationship, it is of the utmost importance to Canadians. Not because, not just because we're close neighbors, but because of the economic impacts of having a failed relationship. Now, I'm not suggesting that this current administration would be easy for anybody to deal with. There are a lot of challenges. Donald Trump has a much different approach to international relations, and especially to trade. He's not a free trader in the traditional sense. He's got a much different approach to these things.
Okay, so I dislike the fact that he's being disrespectful already right out the gate. The question was, how would you deal with this administration? What would you do to repair the relationship? And he purposely did not name Trump as an administration that they can deal with. He says, from Obama to Clinton and everyone in between, Bush, Canada can deal, but this Trump administration, we know that he's not very good on free trade. Here's Trump at the G7 talking. This is a question from a reporter. I heard that you brought up free trade. Here's Trump on free trade.
The idea of a tariff-free G7? Is that
I did. Oh, I did. That's the way it should be. No tariffs, no barriers. That's the way it should be. And no subsidies. I even said no tariffs. In other words, let's say Canada, where we have tremendous tariffs. The United States pays tremendous tariffs on dairy, as an example, 270%. Nobody knows that. We pay nothing. We don't want to pay anything. Why should we pay? We have to, ultimately, that's what you want. You want a tariff-free, you want no barriers, and you want no subsidies, because you have some cases where countries are subsidizing industries, and that's not fair. So you go tariff-free, you go barrier-free, you go subsidy-free. That's the way you learned at the Wharton School of Finance. I mean, that would be the ultimate thing. Now, whether or not that works, but I did suggest it, and people were, I guess they're going to go back to the drawing board and check it out, right? But we can't have...
Okay, and that's where Trump goes off and starts talking about, and again, saying that we can't have different rules for the United States paying to access Canada's market, but Canada able to sell all products into the United States. I think that asking for even reciprocity is not too far. And I understand that NAFTA was a sweetheart deal. NAFTA was an absolute sweetheart deal way back in the 90s, right? And we're sad that we've messed it up so poorly. Like, Mr. Scheer, your answer here is just poor, and I'm going to let you finish it. But I needed to show this is not the right approach to dealing with Mr. Donald Trump. Sorry, with President Donald Trump, this is not the right approach. And regardless of whether you like him or dislike him, this is Bush League. This is talking crap about your competition in the bathroom with the 5 guys who are paying attention to you, while he's got the whole football team and the cheerleaders out on the field, and you're like, yeah, we're totally going to get him, guys. Grow up.
That's why we needed a prime minister that would make Canada in the most powerful position that we possibly could be when we started off at the negotiating table. But instead, when Justin Trudeau sat down to start negotiating NAFTA, what did he have in terms of the context? He had billions of dollars leaving the energy sector. He had people making the choice to do business in the US, not in Canada, because of the insane policies that he was bringing in. Before he started off at the negotiation table in earnest, he spent months attacking small business owners and entrepreneurs and calling them tax cheats because they were trying to build jobs and build businesses in their communities. So he sat down at the table in the weakest possible position before we even get into what we should have signed on to or not. He wasn't negotiating from a position of strength. That was a huge problem. We needed a prime minister that, before that even started, obviously maintain good relations, but then make sure there are voices in the US fighting to get into Canada. So I am very concerned. I don't, Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau, they get up in the House of Commons and they say, well, we got big wins in NAFTA. All they mention are things that Conservatives already got. Their only victories are things that Conservatives previously had already got for the Canadian people. They have nothing to show for everything that they conceded. So what do we need now? We need a drastic shift in our policies. I'd love to get into, I'm looking at, Alex was giving me the sign about moving along because I know we got some more questions, but maybe in a minute I'll talk about the problem that the deficit and debt is going to create for this generation in this room as they enter the workforce.
Okay, I'll leave them there. So the question was, just to remind you, how will you manage the relationship differently? How will you repair the relationship and manage it differently? And he got talking about how much Justin Trudeau failed on NAFTA. So he missed that question, right? Like he didn't answer that question and instead insulted Donald Trump, said we can work with every other administration, but this Trump administration, they're not so good on the free trade. Please explain that position to me, Mr. Scheer. I don't understand. And maybe I'm dumb. Maybe I'm the idiot who misses this obvious thing that Trump is anti-free trade, despite his words, despite his signing free trade agreements with Japan and with there are other countries that are. It's off the top of my head right now because I haven't been paying attention to American politics recently. But maybe I'm the idiot. Maybe I missed it. Okay, so I've got one more clip to show you, and I know this is a longer video than I intended it to be, but this whole speech and question and answer period is an hour, so I'm saving you about 5 minutes. No, not really. I've just got one thing left. I'll be right back. This is the Bernier question, and so how are you going to deal with Maxime Bernier and the split vote, et cetera, et cetera? And well, here we go.
Hi, my name's Tom. I'm at the University of Toronto, and my question is mainly to Mr. Scheer. So the polls have you not so good right now. You're behind the Liberals, and then you have the really weak NDP under Jagmeet Singh. It doesn't look like you're going to get any help from them. And then you have Mr. O'Leary's BFF, Maxime Bernier, who's also being a pest right now, and you're
Don't
behind.
be negative.
Sorry, it's the truth. At this point, it looks like you have a plan, but every single election, every single person who's run for office has known that in the last month, in the last 2 months, your plan fails and you'll need a new plan. So my question is twofold. What's the plan right now? And when you realize that you're going to lose with your plan, what's the backup plan?
Well, first of all, I don't know which...
I really hope for a Conservative leader win, but at this point, I kind of doubt it because just at the University of Toronto, there may be 10 Conservatives in total, and that's just the feel that I get in Canada right now, that the Conservatives are pretty weak, that Conservative values are not strong, and that how do you see yourself in a position to put yourself in a position to actually win this election?
Well, first of all, I completely reject the premise of the question. No surprise to you there. I will accept one thing that you said, and that is that there are a lot of issues that are lining up against us. There's a lot of things that are going to make our job very difficult to win. That being said, it's never been easy it's not easy becoming Prime Minister of Canada. If it were easy, everybody would do it. And many, many good people have had great plans that have been, that have been very difficult to execute. What I look at, I see us winning, and I don't know what it is that you're talking about because we have had. I mean, you can look at one poll and say, well, today it's not so good. I don't look at polls. Polls go up and polls go down. I look at results, and when you look at the signature policy pieces of this government, we've destroyed them. We've destroyed the credibility on the carbon tax. We've destroyed their handling of the economy. We've out-communicated them. We've won the battle of ideas in the House of Commons. We are beating them 2-1 on fundraising. I mean, when this guy took office, he's a celebrity politician. I mean, he gets front page news in other countries when he shows up, and articles written about the socks he's wearing. And we're beating him. We're beating him. And we're beating him the place that matters the most, and that's at the ballot box. We just won a by-election in a part of Quebec that we hadn't won since 1997. So, you know, I'm looking at the plan that we're executing, and I see success. And we're going to keep doing it. Because at the end of the day, the Canadian people see what this guy has been doing to the country, the fact that Trudeau's policy has been a catastrophe, a failure. Every way you measure a government, he has failed. And we're now starting to put out our own policies. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, which is being authentic, telling my story about how I didn't inherit anything to make my life easier. I didn't, you know, when I went to university, I didn't have a trust fund to pay that. I had to go get a job and wait tables to pay my tuition. And I worked hard, and I got a job in the insurance sector. I got elected in 2004. Everybody told me I couldn't win. Everybody told me there's no way I would win in 2004. I was going up against an NDP member of parliament that had been there for over 30 years, and I beat him. Then they told me I couldn't become Speaker of the House of Commons because I was too young, and there were other people running that had more experience. And I won. I beat all those people too. And with all due respect, they told me I couldn't win the leadership race of the Conservative Party either.
And you did.
And I did. So I'm very optimistic. I know I'm going to be Prime Minister of Canada. I know we're going to beat the Liberals in 2019. I just need your help to do it.
All right, and I'll leave it there. O'Leary chimes in there too, but you can see that if you want to. 55 minutes, 7 minutes left. And this interface is awful. This video interface is awful. But he doesn't really answer the question. You know, he was asked specifically about Bernier. He was asked specifically about weak NDP, and he didn't touch on any of those things. And I mean, okay, I guess that it's fine to want to put your positive conservative vision first and foremost. And this is a little stump speech. That's the, like, that answer there was rehearsed, practiced. It was set up, and I don't think the question was set up, but he was waiting for that kind of question, like the split vote, the weak NDP. They know this. Mr. Scheer is a very intelligent person. You don't get to leader of a political party in a G7 country by being a fool. He knows these things. So his not commenting on those things is notable, right? He did that on purpose. So is he that afraid of Bernier that he didn't want to comment on him? And he's saying, I won. You know, I beat Bernier already. I won all those things that everybody's counting me out of. And no, I don't believe the polls, and I think Scheer's approach is probably pretty correct. You know, you've got to just keep putting your message out regardless, and I think Max is probably the same. But my point here is we're seeing more of the same word salad that sounds good, because at the end of his speech, at the end of what he's saying, you've forgotten what the question was. Right? That's part of the reason why sometimes I'll put the question up here, because about a minute and a half in, you're trying to pay attention to what the person's saying, and you're like, well, what question was he answering again? Oh, right. He's not talking anything about anything. He's saying he's popular and he won. It's not easy to be prime minister. I see us winning. We won at the ballot boxes. We're out fundraising them. Well, when they're stacking the deck with the rules, debate commissioners and all sorts of other stuff, out fundraising them and pulling a few by-elections that, I mean, Mr. Trudeau is not calling. I don't know if that looks like winning. And this room isn't exactly standing room only. I didn't know about it. And I mean, I don't have the Facebook thing. I'm not a member of the Conservative Party, so I don't get emails. I should. I got rebuked for that the other day from a friend of mine saying, you should have the emails coming to your email. I should. You're right. Maybe I'll set that up today. But I didn't know about this. If I'd known about this, maybe I would have been there too. Maybe I would have asked a question. Who knows? But that's not his fault. That's my fault. I'm not trying to blame Scheer for me not knowing about this. Sorry if that was the impression. That's not. But my point overall is the communication does need to be better. People need to know who Mr. Scheer is. And I think that it's either his message is convoluted and confusing, so people just turn it off, or he's not saying things that ignite people wanting to talk about them. He's saying things like, we're going to, lock those gangs up. And unless the gangs he's talking about are the guys in the UN, then you're not talking about what I want to hear about, Mr. Scheer. So thank you for watching. Sorry for the length of this video. I didn't intend for it to be this long, but well, this is how long it took. So thank you very much for watching, and have an excellent, excellent day.